Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest Data Science Central webinar. This is Stephanie Glenn, your host. I'm the Editorial Director at Data Science Central. I'm also the creator of statisticshowto.com. I'd like to start our event of today by thanking Trifacta and Forrester for sponsoring today's event. Trifacta and Forrester are longtime supporters of the Data Science Central community, and we are honored to have them sponsoring our event today. Today's webinar is entitled, Why Cloud Data Management Requires Modern Data Ops, featuring Forrester, to be presented by Trifacta and Forrester. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today's event will be 1 hour long. We have two presenters who I'll introduce in just a minute. There will be a 10 to 15 minute Q&A following the presentation. And this event is being recorded and will be available on datasciencecentral.com later this afternoon following today's live event. I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation. We will be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Noel Johanna with Forrester and Will Davis with Trifacta. Noel Johanna is a principal analyst at Forrester. Noel covers big data warehouses, data fabric, data integration, data virtualization, Hadoop, Spark, in-memory, translytical, NoSQL, cloud, ETL, big data integration, data management, data tools, and data security for enterprise architecture professionals. His current focus is on new and emerging markets, modern data architectures, cloud and hybrid cloud deployments. He's got more than 25 years of experience in IT, and he's held various technical and management positions. He came to Forrester through its acquisition of Giga Information Group in 2003. Noel holds a bachelor's degree in business and a postgraduate degree in business administration, and is the author of an Oracle book published by Manning Publications in 1999. Will Davis is Director of Product Marketing at Trifacta. He drives GTM and product marketing efforts, having spent the last 8 years managing the marketing initiatives for several high-growth data companies. Prior to Trifacta, Will worked with a variety of companies focused on data infrastructure, analytics, and visualization, including Good Data, Greenplum, and Clear Story Data. Will develops and executes Trifacta's marketing and content strategies to rapidly expand business growth and brand awareness. Thanks for being with us today, Noel and Will. We're looking forward to your presentation. Over the past few years, the evolution of technologies of storing, processing, and analyzing data has been absolutely staggering. The advent of cloud platforms from AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud gives every business the ability to swipe a credit card and have access to virtually any computing service to handle just about any data initiative. Yet why are so many organizations still struggling to drive meaningful ROI from their data investments? The answer starts with data ops. In today's Data Science Central webinar, you will learn how the emergence of new trends such as cloud, machine learning, and AI have impacted the data management landscape, what data ops is, and the key considerations for implementing or transitioning data management to the cloud. How to maximize cloud investments and adoption with new approaches to data preparation and data quality. Noel and Will, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. Will, you can begin as soon as you're ready to go.
Thanks, Stephanie. I just wanted to quickly jump in and introduce Noel before he gets started. I've been working with Noel for a few years now in my role at Trifacta, and he is one of the thought leaders in this industry in understanding what is going on with data management, analytics, and in our specific market, data preparation at Trifacta. Really excited to have him speak on this topic as it relates to this emerging category that is referred to as DataOps, thinking of DataOps both as a process and as a new set of technologies, and especially as it relates to the transition of data management and analytics to cloud platforms. So with that, Noel, I will pass it to you and have you present your portion of the presentation. Really happy to have you here.
Thanks, Bill. This is Noel Johanna, I guess an analyst at Forrester. What's interesting is, as an analyst, I get to speak to many different customers in different industries, whether they are the banking sector or healthcare, oil and gas, and others. In fact, I speak like 3 to 4 customers every day. And these are big companies, these are mid-sized companies all over the world. And what's interesting is in these conversations I'm having, I guess, with these customers is that they're obviously moving to the cloud, like everyone else, And people don't really understand sometimes, like, what do we do with the cloud, I guess, what all things are good and not so good, what kind of things you got to be watchful for in the cloud, and also the benefits, in terms of financially and also from an analytical perspective. So I'm going to share you some of the things which we have learned over the couple of years, I guess, on the cloud actually journey for those customers, like what all things are working, what's not working, and also DataOps, right? DataOps is this new term which is being used in the industry out there. How does it really play a role in the cloud data management, right? Because cloud obviously can mean different things, whether it's infrastructure, whether it is a platform, whether you're building applications around that. So obviously, things have to be and kind of mentioned around like what all things we can do with it, right? So before we get into that discussion, I guess, data is like the new currency. In fact, you can buy and sell data today, right? We never used to do that before, right? It's like oil. It's like an asset, right? It's driving today's strategy, right? Because obviously about 7% of the companies today are making money out of data. And we believe that number is going to triple, not even double, triple in the next 2 years. Because obviously there's a lot of value in the data for other companies, right? So definitely, now the problem with the data obviously is that we have all these humongous data sets growing all over, right? Even on my desktop, I have all these data files which I can't even manage myself, The explosion is obviously creating these new opportunities for businesses, which we don't realize. In fact, there's more than 3.6 zettabytes. And I think the zettabytes are like, 21 zeros or something like that. It's like, I don't think it'll fit into my calculator or in my iPhone, But there's lots of data there, right? Whether it's sensor data, IoT data, social data, clickstream data. Now, people forget about that. Hey, we can actually create value from this as well, right? Now, the good thing is cloud is helping people get value from the data, right? And how? Well, cloud obviously creates this time to value. It creates an ecosystem of things for different types of suppliers. It also helps you with self-service, agility, scale. All of these blue points I'm mentioning in the slide here are some of the things which really is a value to customers. In fact, some customers just go for the elastic scale and also the higher performance. Some just go for the cost, I'm going to save money in the cloud. This is the reason why I'm going to go. Or time to value and what have you, right? In fact, some of the surveys we have done over the last couple of years, it's all about improved business agility, right? The time to value is very, very important. So people expect that, hey, when you go to the cloud, I'm going to actually accelerate my use case, which I'm doing, whether it's a customer 360 or IoT, those things are going to be very important. If you recall, 10 years ago, right, I mean, when we used to do analytics, we used to only have one or two use cases running for the entire company, right? Today, we are doing new use cases, I think, every month now, right? In fact, some companies are mentioning every week we're having these new use cases emerging, right? Gone are those days where we only had limited resources. And cloud really enables you the speed of deployments. It helps you innovate. It helps you grow and support these environments as well, right? If you look at it, cloud, however, has its own challenges, right? Even though those benefits I mentioned about cost savings, time to value is good, but the reality is, it's complex world out there in the cloud because there's a lot of security challenges, there's a lot of data connectivity issues, there's a lot of integration issues, data inconsistency issues, standard issues, legacy data. What about the legacy data, right? Because the fact that the data may be still sitting in your data center, right? How do you move those things in the cloud? What about governance, which is obviously a big topic of discussion, right, as well? In fact, 6 years ago, actually, back in time, 65% of companies were concerned about security 6 years ago. Today it's down to 32%. Right? I mean, look at the decline from 65% where we were 6 years ago. Today, the number one concern of people in the cloud is security. Not surprising, right? Because obviously, you're not sure whether data is going to be secure, protected, and all the good stuff. The good thing is that it has declined because obviously, security measures a lot more stronger with encryption and masking and auditing controls you have in place, right? Which really helps the customers a lot in this value proposition they're trying to do, right? So I think that's where the fundamental thing of value it comes into play. If you were to look at what customers really want in our discussions with Fortune 1000 companies, for example, Global 2000 companies, or even mid-sized companies, I mean, they want trusted data, right? They want to have a platform that's more self-service. I should be able to do my analytics not only faster, but also in a different ways, which we have never done before, right? And this is all about connected data. It's also about actually having a global view of information, right? We have businesses today which are global, but then they report very local. They have reporting of these reports or dashboards very localized. Sometimes they don't get the global view because the data is not shared. So, I mean, cloud really helps you actually in that. So there are some gaps here from where people are going into the cloud that, hey, we really need to have trusted data. We need to actually have more connected data. We need to actually have more secure, sensitive data, and what have you, right? And if you look at it in terms of its use cases, there's obviously many, many different use cases which people do in the cloud, whether they're trying to do one type of use case or if they're trying to do another use cases. It is one of those things which actually makes it a lot of what matters, I guess, for them, right? There's also a demand for this whole multi-cloud. We have seen companies actually starting to leverage multi-cloud, obviously in a big way, because you obviously have Amazon, you've got Google out there, we got Microsoft, and others, right? And I think 20% of organizations are already doing multi-cloud, which obviously adds to the complexity. Well, why are they doing multi-cloud? Well, a couple of reasons, obviously lower cost, but also best of breed technologies and solutions from these multi-cloud or you call it different cloud deployments. There are architectures like Big Data Fabric which are helping in this multi-cloud, but I think hybrid cloud is also equally important, especially with Fortune 1000 companies who want to get the best of breed from both of the worlds, right? On-premises security and cloud and what have you, right? So that actually creates it even more interestingly, right? Interesting kind of a platform. AI obviously is the fastest growing workload on the planet. I think everyone agrees with that, I guess, because it's all about the AI right now. I guess everyone's talking about it, I guess. And AI adoption continues, but the reality comes to light, right? So this is a survey over the last 3 years. 2016, 17, 18, 19 is still, I guess, in progress, I guess, right now. What are the first plans to doing the following analytics, AI? And if you look at it, there's a growth, but there's a kind of a stagnant kind of a growth between 2017 and 2018, about 50, 56 53% of people actually are implementing or expanding on AI. Others are planning, but only like 20% or 25% are not interested, I guess, So a big chunk of people, I guess, are definitely looking at having these platforms available. And this exactly slide shows you that, right? To what extent is your company delivering AI? 62% is we are getting started right now in AI, right? Which I think is where I think most people are in that whole analysis. So the most important thing comes back is how will AI impact your organization, right? Well, 87% claim it's improving efficiencies and effectiveness, which is, I think, the fundamentally important part of it, right? And AI means two parts of it, right? AI having as a platform, the platform actually could be a platform for doing data management, which improves the effectiveness, or the outcomes of your data, right? That's also AI, right? The outcomes are important to be able to identify, for example, customer churn, right? Can it automatically do that, right? Today we have to actually dig deeper to understand if there's a customer churn going to happen, right? So definitely some of those things really make a difference out there, right? Increasing revenue about 55%, which is interesting. I guess, a lot of people are also looking at AI to enabling not only new use cases, but also improving the company's position around revenue and innovation, which I think is definitely going to be important for, I think, all organizations going forward. The top intended use cases reflects the business upside and scale, right? So automating the business processes, personalized experiences, improving products and services obviously play an important role in these deployments and scenarios, which I think is where we have seen most companies do as well, right? So that's I think the fundamental of where AI actually fits in. So if you look at it, how are people using it? There are obviously retailers who are today doing a lot of AI machine learning to be able to understand customer data, historical data, legacy data, along with active data or real-time data, as we call it. Because we need to know exactly their preferences. We need to know the geolocation. Imagine when you walk into a mall, all of a sudden there's an alert which pops up and say, "Hey, Noel, we'll give you 50% discount on that pair of jeans," right? That's actually a very personalized experience you're trying to do. Imagine if you had 1 million customers, how would you do that, right? You really need a platform actually to understand the data, right? You need a platform actually to really drive those values. And good thing is, cloud actually helps you. Why? Because it has elastic scale and performance. And you can have a 1,000-node cluster running in a few seconds, actually, right? Go figure, right? That actually is pretty powerful, actually, right, to do that in the cloud. But, AI is all about actually having that intelligence coming into play from not only from the analytics, but also from the data, right? The data being a very important. How do you prepare data? How do you transform the data to becoming more powerful for customer experiences and customer success, right? That's definitely an important element. Obviously, robotics and all of the machineries, right? I think all of the manufacturing companies out there obviously have been starting to engage on AI machine learning. We get a lot of inquiries about that. How we can actually leverage, what technology should we leverage. But, it's not just about getting data from one sensor and one machine and that's AI machine learning. Not really, right? You really have to blend that data with other data sets in the industry or your legacy data as well, right? You really have to blend all those things together. And that's why, data management is not so trivial to do, I guess, for AI machine learning. It's not just about collecting data, putting it into a log file, and that's called AI machine learning. You really have to put modeling, right? You have to put different models to it. You have to put different context to it. You have to integrate data across many, many sources. You have to prepare and transform the data. So that definitely is what we've seen companies do. And here is, I think the slide I was referring to is actually the AI is not about one technology. It comprises of one or more building blocks, right, as we call it, whether it's data, which is obviously deep learning, machine learning, but also it's about knowledge learning, knowledge engineering as well as physics, right? Robotics and sensor and also combination of humans and data and physics kind of apply as well with AI. So it's a combination of things, and it depends upon the use case scenario. And, this is what we have heard customers telling us, like, okay, well, AI platforms are not straightforward. It obviously takes time and effort to deploy it, and it requires skills. It requires resources from system resources to play with it. We need to actually have those 1,000-node cluster, maybe not, depending on how much data you got. We also have to have tools, right? I mean, tools, technologies are very important as well. But the bigger problem, I think, is bullet number 3, that there's lots of tools out there, which adds to the confusion and integration challenges as well, right? I mean, when you have more tools, it's good, but it also adds to the confusion, which tools are beneficial, right? Which can really automate the whole processes of AI. Interestingly, bullet number 2, 25% of enterprises have failed already on AI. We're just getting started, we thought, right? But guess what? A lot of companies have already failed because of what? Skills issues. Complexity, right? Data complexity is a big factor. Lack of vision. I mean, if you don't have a vision and a strategy in place, you're bound to fail. Right? Like some of the companies are saying, yeah, we're doing AI machine learning. And what exactly are you guys doing with AI machine learning, right? Can't we do that with older technologies, right? You could, but AI obviously takes it to the next level. You have to really know what are some of the benefits of AI in terms of new technologies and new innovation there's driving, especially with like data preparation and data management, which I think is fundamentally is the most important thing as part of the whole stack of AI. A lot of people claim that AI requires a lot of coding and technical skills. The time and effort to manage those resources becomes even boggling. So coming back to like DataOps, right? So how does DataOps come into all this play, right? We've been talking about cloud, we've been talking about AI, and all of the benefits of the cloud platform. So DataOps, if you have heard the term, is all about people, process, technologies, right? The aims to making data available quickly. That's very important, quickly, right? Securely and in a timely manner to supporting many, many different roles in an organization, whether you're doing developers or data engineers working on it, data scientists working on it. You want to make this data available quickly enough. And securely. Security is very important. You don't want to give every data to everybody in an organization, right? You have to be intelligent. The data needs to be intelligent to know exactly this is what the person is authorized to see, especially with all the GDPR security governance rules in play. DataOps focuses on automation, self-service, AI, machine learning, multi-cloud, integration, delivering all this trusted data in a close alignment with business objectives. So definitely, it's a buzzword, obviously, which came out from DevOps kind of things, right, which we did for development of applications. But DataOps is really enabling this whole platform and processes to making more automated for people to be able to leverage as well, right? So that's fundamentally the most important thing in terms of what they can do and provide that layer of abstraction, I think, which I think is critical, right? Also, if you see in terms of how people, I guess, are engaged on these benefits, there are many different things you can do with the cloud, right? If you're doing cloud data management, to be successful, there's many things, right? Automation is critical because a lot of people just go and dump data in the cloud. Object store, yeah, we're going to put everything in object store. Then do what with it? No one has a clue about that, right? But you really have to have a process in place, right, to do the automation from the ingestion to the governance to the management to security. So there is some techniques, and in fact, some people have failed for that reason because they never really had not only the vision but not really the automation in place. Like one customer was mentioning to me, they got like 2.5 petabytes of data sitting in the cloud today. But then, I said, what exactly are the use cases you guys are doing, right? They just pointed out to one use case. So they weren't really the right organizations to leverage the cloud, I would say. Why? Because they just dump data for one use case. They could have done it on premises, right? But when you go into the cloud, you enable many different use cases. and new styles of dashboards and analytics and making the data available to the business users, which really changes the dimensions, right? Self-service, persona-based experiences between developer and architects and scientists and all the good stuff, right? Security, integration, production, all this. I mean, and the whole things to become successful in a cloud, you really have to start to look at the whole end-to-end from a data management perspective, whether it's integration, whether it's doing security, governance, and all the good stuff going on, right? I think, also, in other words, how do you enable it to making it from a business perspective? So obviously, we have actually a lot of things from a business perspective in terms of scenario that's being done. But I would say is there are many benefits. One of the things which I've seen customers talk about is more about cost savings, right? It's interesting that the benefits is also about use cases. Because not just about one use cases, they are doing IoT or fraud or customer intelligence, but being able to reap across many different use cases. That's number one. The time to value is another important thing of this cloud management, right? Remember, if you were in IT organizations on premises, if you wanted to get a 16 CPU server, it used to take 3 months, 6 months trying to get that server back in, right, to a data center. Well, today we can do that in seconds, right? So that actually changes everything, right? So in order to become more successful for cloud data management strategies, the business benefits is all about creating these self-service attributes for dynamic data marts, so data sets, and data intelligence, and also ensuring compliance, which is important. So if you look at it, what are the benefits from actually having this? Is obviously, the cloud benefits actually are enormous, right, across all these things. But one of the recommendations is that obviously you go drive towards a self-service cloud data management strategies, which is supporting multiple personas. This is very important. Some of the tools we see out there are addressing only one set of personas, not the other personas. And the other personas are actually having other tools, which has lack of inconsistency across the platform, right? So you want to look at solutions that can not only drive self-service from the IT, but also self-service from the business. There are two self-services aspects of it, right? IT obviously is about automating the processes and architectures, but also self-services from the business is that I, as a business user or a data scientist who are trying to prepare data, being able to do thousands of dashboards myself, not those 10 dashboards, right? which IT provides or which is what's available, right? Going forward, each and every business user should be able to create those thousands of dashboards themselves, right? That's the goal with self-service. This is where we are heading towards in the coming years, right? So you got to keep that in mind. Also, keep security. I've been talking about security throughout this presentation, and I think this is a very important point because that's the number one concern. Obviously, especially when you do multi-cloud scenarios, you got to treat that sensitive data carefully with all the encryption at rest, encryption in motion, with auditing, monitoring. The cloud providers may not be liable for your data theft. Remember that. So you got to be careful about your data. It's your data they are putting in their cloud environment. So you have to have a platform to understand those things as well, right? Create a team of experts. This is the real reason why people succeed in having a cloud data management strategy for AI, machine learning, or analytics. It's having a team, not just data scientists working by themselves or data engineers working by themselves. You really have to have all of those collaboration going on. You got to have tools to collaborate across architects, across business analysts, data scientists, engineers, and developers alike. This is the most important point, I guess. You got to look at those things. Look at data preparation tools. I was mentioning data management solutions that can automate. Very important. Automate is a very important point because people are looking for time to value for these use cases. Not just I'm going to put this in the cloud. I'm going to save 20% money and be done with it. Well, not really. Cloud really changes the game here, right? It disrupts your processes. It disrupts the business operations in a manner to make it more fruitful, It can drive better revenue and innovation and growth, right? So look at automation as really the big thing for when you move to the cloud. That's fundamentally a very important point when you're going to the cloud. This is what we're hearing from the Fortune 1000 companies who are succeeding, right? Especially in self-service and AI machine learning capabilities, which are within the platform itself, to doing automation from data preparation to data management capabilities as well, right? So that's something which you should look at as well in terms of delivering to the customers. I guess with that, I would like to hand it over to Will.
Thanks, Noel. Always great to hear your perspective on the market, especially what's going on with AI, cloud, data management, analytics. So at this time, before we jump into my presentation, wanted to launch a poll. So hopefully everyone can see this poll on your screen right now. The question is, where is your team in implementing a cloud data lake? So is it fully operational, early stages, evaluating, planning, or no plans? So please enter in your information, and we will be sharing out the results in a few minutes. So good to see that the results are coming in as we speak. So Noel, while we're waiting for people to fill out the survey, I had a question. So how are you seeing organizations either invest in cloud technologies or transition some existing processes to the cloud? Are there any trends that you're seeing with the companies that you're speaking to?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, if you're going to the cloud, I would say migrations tools are there to help you there. Obviously, you have to have a vision when you go to the cloud. What are things you're going to benefit out of the cloud? Obviously, look at low-hanging fruit. What are the things you can do from a use case scenario, whether you're doing a customer 360 or IoT, fraud detection, what have you, right? Because obviously, the good thing with the cloud is you can actually do many different things in the cloud, first of all, but also new things in the cloud, which we could never, ever do before. Because I know customers saying that, well, our system is so busy, we can't even run a query, actually. It takes forever, right? So with the cloud, you create these new possibilities and experiences is where you disrupt the whole scenarios for your organization in a manner to really innovate and grow, right? So I think people should definitely look at tools. We talked about tools to automate this processes, but also look at the new insights and things they can do with the cloud. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So with that, I'm going to share out the results from our poll. So we had over 60% of the attendees share out their answers. It looks like there's fairly even distribution. I would say the top ones are, there are probably individuals here that are either consultants or students or individual leaders that have no plans to implement a cloud data lake. But then the majority of the people that are in the implementation or planning process are in the early stages, which is 22% of our audience. And then there's a fairly even split, actually an exactly even split between fully operational, evaluating, and planning. And this is pretty consistent with what we see in the market with the organizations that are moving to a cloud data lake. The majority of them are either in the early stages or in the evaluating and planning stages of their data lake implementation. So thanks for sharing your input. Really appreciate it. And as we go ahead, I want to make sure that people are entering in questions so we can address those at the end of the presentation. So thank you. All right, so I'm going to move into the Trifacta portion of the presentation. Once again, my name is Will Davis. I head up product marketing at Trifacta. So I'll be talking about what we see with the adoption and popularity of DataOps in the industry and amongst the organizations that we work with, and then talk a little bit about Trifacta, what our role is in this process and with cloud data management and data preparation specifically, and some of the success we're driving for our customers, and also why customers choose us. So I have a different definition than Noel has, but closely mapped to what he shared earlier. And so DataOps, this is a definition I got from a company called Nexla. Definition is DataOps is a function within an organization that controls the data journey from source to value. And as anyone who knows in the technology industry, DataOps is the adaptation of the DevOps methodology, which is very popular in software development and application delivery within organizations. And so DataOps is the process and set of technologies and actually the roles in terms of how organizations are accelerating this process and making it more agile and taking data from its initial state or raw state and making it valuable for some downstream use, whether that's reporting, an operational use case, analytics, machine learning, or AI, as Noel talked about. And it's how do we organize our people, our process, and technology to make that more efficient and faster and more accurate. So some of the broader trends that we're seeing in this space, in this evolution of analytics and data management, is the who, the what, the where, and the how are shifting. So traditional processes that were once IT-led, and I think Noel led to one of those in terms of provisioning a server, some computing capacity, are now shifting to being business-led activities. So more business groups are having their own technical resources where they can move more quickly, they can select their own technologies, and they don't have to rely on some centralized IT function or shared service to do what they want to do from a technology perspective. A lot of the technology decision-making, the process implementation is being led by different business teams. The data that organizations are interacting with is also much more complex. So we were once looking at simply transactions or structured data that were in relational databases or transactional databases. We're now looking at a broader set of data, so interactions, behaviors, third-party data. Data is now a differentiator for businesses, and the more data they have access to, the wider diversity that they have access to, and their ability to make that data useful for their organization is a key competitive differentiator for them over their competition. And we're also seeing this transition from traditionally or primarily on-prem implementations of databases, data warehouses, and analytics work to more of a hybrid multi-cloud or cloud-centric implementation with the implementation and adoption of cloud services like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and also Google Cloud Platform. And then you're also seeing the processes move from sort of a top-down implementation where a system or a process is set by a leader or management, and then that is carried out by the employees downstream. More so is the developers, the analysts, the people that are doing the work hands-on are developing process from the bottom up, and those are being driven by iteration, collaboration, and then moving into broader organizational processes as they are shown to have value. So these are some of the broader shifts we see and why more agile, more iterative, more processes are driven from end users and business departments versus top-down IT-led interactions, and we see this especially with analytics and data management. And so, as organizations are adopting cloud and data lake specifically to accelerate their ability to generate value from data, the biggest issue in terms of getting value out of these projects is the work in getting data ready for their intended use. So it could be onboarding external data, it could be a machine learning use case, it could be some analytics or reporting use case, or it could be some just operational system or process. And the biggest challenge is taking data from its source. So that could be a database, it could be a spreadsheet. We have a variety of different data platforms represented on the left side of the screen here, and getting that ready for whatever downstream use we have on the right-hand side of the screen. And we have a quote here from DJ Patel, who was a former LinkedIn data scientist and the former chief data scientist under the Obama administration, where he says, "It's impossible to overstress this. 80% of the work in any data project is cleaning the data." And I'm sure all of the attendees out here are familiar with that, is cleaning, munging, preparing, all that work is, and getting access to data as well is one of the biggest challenges, most inefficient processes in any sort of data project. So the idea of making data freely available within a lake construct where you're loading a variety of different data sources in their raw form into a lake and then giving access to end users to be able to prepare, manipulate, and access that data freely for whatever downstream intended use they have, has the promise of accelerating efficiency and generating more value from data as long as they have the appropriate technologies and processes to more efficiently clean and prepare that data for whatever they want to do. And we're seeing this process impact entire data ops teams or analytics teams, from the data analysts who have the context for the data, who want to use it for whatever reporting they're building for their team, department, or executive, data engineers that are taking the work from end users, that could be a data analyst or could be a data scientist, and managing that or setting up a process that can scale to the broader organization. So they can set up a workflow to run on a regular basis, to scale to large volumes of data, to feed operational processes that then the broader organization can grab value from instead of a few individual users. And then you also have data scientists that are typically working on special initiatives around some sort of cutting edge algorithm or data science initiative, and these end users also have to be able to clean and prepare data for whatever they want to do. So every member of your team that works with data, whether that's the analysts, the data scientists, who are probably the ones that are interacting with the data manually, or the data engineer who are setting up processes to feed data pipelines, this is the biggest challenge for them. So we're trying to, at Trifacta, to accelerate this process of discovering what's in your data, structuring it, cleaning it, enriching it, validating it, and then deploying it to wherever you want to use that downstream for all of these end users. And as Noel mentioned, we're trying to make sure that our interface, it feeds the needs of all of these end users. So we have, you'll see in a bit when I show snapshots of our interface, that we have architected Trifacta to handle users of different technical abilities or abilities with data, to make sure that we're flexible enough to meet the needs of all of the users of data in your organization. And Noel talked a lot about machine learning and AI. As more and more organizations are taking on machine learning and AI initiatives, and they see this as a core piece of future strategy and maintaining relevancy with their competition, the one thing that has gotten lost is the ability to have high quality data or clean data to be used by those machine learning and AI initiatives. So I have a few articles that are referenced here in this slide, one from Harvard Business Review and one from MIT Sloan Management Review. And the HBR article, they talk about how poor data quality is enemy number one in the widespread use of machine learning. And then in the MIT article, they also talk about, hey, everyone has access to the same algorithms and the same computing platforms, but one of the biggest differentiators is data. So if organizations have access to differentiated data and they're able to make use of that data, then they're able to gain a leg up of the competition, because in the end, the majority of the algorithms are freely available and are commonly used across organizations. But if you have differentiated data, that's how you differentiate yourselves in this machine learning race. And so this has been recognized by sort of all of the leaders on modern data platforms or cloud data platforms in the key role of cleaning and preparing data for the use of analytics and machine learning on these platforms. So here I have quotes from some of the leaders at Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and also Cloudera, where they're talking about the role of data preparation, and specifically mentioning Trifacta in accelerating use cases of cleaning and preparing data that can be leveraged for analytics, that can be leveraged for machine learning, and all of these different workloads that are running on these platforms. And this is sort of the key bottleneck with a lot of the workloads that are intended to be run on these platforms. So Trifacta has tight integrations, tight partnerships with all of these data platforms, whether you're running on a platform on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Cloudera, or a multi-cloud or hybrid cloud environment. We have tight integration support for all of the deployments with each of these platforms. So what to do? If you're trying to implement data ops practices, trying to gain more efficiency out of your analytics and data management practices, how do you actually do this? Well, as a member of Trifacta, we are specifically focused on this problem of, which is the most inefficient problem in any data project, which is getting data ready, or what we call data wrangling, but you can also hear this referred to as data preparation, data cleaning, data munging, data quality, all of the work that is intended to access, clean, prepare, structure, join together data sources for the purposes of analysis. We are we have a platform that is designed to accelerate this work, to enable a broader set of users to do this work and to make it more efficient, more accurate, in a governed process. So, our focus is providing visual and intelligent guidance to guide a variety of users and do some of the automation that Noel talked about, and automate assessment and transformation of data to make it more efficient, more accurate. We also want to make sure that these are collaborative processes that end users are collaborating with their IT counterparts on. So as end users are developing workflows or developing data sets that can be used by the broader organization, those are happening in a transparent, governed process, and that can be easily operationalized for the broader organization to leverage. And then we do that by providing an enterprise-wide platform. So Trifacta is essentially managed, centrally implemented technology that can be provided access to from a variety of different end users or stakeholders in this process. So there's a single platform where you're loading data, you're creating access to data, and you have transparent visibility into data lineage, data access controls, integrated security, so that all the work that is done on the platform, administrators, members of the IT team, data governance team members have visibility into, and they can track what's going on, instead of some of the other solutions where you have implementations on your desktop or on sort of departmental server-based environment where there's no governance, no access controls, and there are a tremendous amount of security and data access issues that may threaten your organization. And so Trifacta is being implemented from a wide variety of large Fortune 500 enterprises and also a number of innovative startup companies in the ability to drive the accelerated adoption and success of a variety of different workloads. Those could be analytics use cases around predictive modeling, business intelligence, data onboarding, or also operational use cases around data migration, testing and validation, and also risk and compliance. So you'll see here a representation of a few of the logos we have in organizations that are driving these different use cases and enabling data analysts, data engineers, and data scientists to have success manipulating data for these variety of analytics initiatives and operational initiatives. And as a webinar that's focused on cloud data lakes, we have native integration with the storage, processing, and security processes and systems within each of these major cloud providers. So we're natively integrated with AWS from storage, processing, security, and access controls, also with Azure. And then we also have a strategic relationship with Google Cloud, and so the Google Cloud Data Prep service is actually an implementation of Trifacta on Google Cloud. So that is essentially a strategic integration where Google Cloud has taken the Trifacta solution and natively integrated it into the Google Cloud platform as a first-party service with Google Cloud. So if you go to Google Cloud and you search for Cloud Data Prep, you're going to find Cloud Data Prep by Trifacta, which is a joint collaboration across our two technologies. And then with AWS and Azure, if you need to implement Trifacta in any of those environments, we natively integrate with all of the storage and processing, security, and access control configurations that those platforms have. We've had a tremendous amount of success with organizations adopting cloud data lakes across all of these platforms. So here's a sampling of some of the companies we work with across financial services, insurance, pharmaceutical industry, healthcare, and a variety of other industries that organizations are implementing Trifacta to accelerate adoption of cloud data lakes and accelerate the success of their use cases on these platforms. So have seen a tremendous amount of success in the few years that we've been in business, and this customer count is growing on a daily basis. So we're excited to be working with some of the leading organizations with their use of data and accelerating their success on these platforms. So I'll quickly go over why organizations choose Trifacta and what differentiates us from a few other data preparation or data management platforms, and then I'll show you how we can get started and we can jump into Q&A. I know we only have about 10 minutes left. So the first piece is around quality. So one of the things that we're trying to do is trying to empower the people who know the data best. So data analysts, people who understand the business context for the data, who know how to manipulate it for the purpose of their analysis, and they can use that context to drive the transformation process. And the legacy process that we're trying to replace here is one that a business lead or a business analyst will go to their IT counterpart, write a spec for what data they want to have access to, pass that over to someone in IT who will either create a derivative data set using an ETL technology or pull down data from a database and give them access to it, but may have misinterpreted some of the context or some of the guidance that that analyst has provided. So in this implementation, in sort of the implementation of a cloud data lake, IT is provisioning access to data to their end users, and that could be, as I mentioned before, an analyst, a data scientist, or a data engineer, and allowing them to self-serve, allowing them to access data, to transform it, clean it, and produce a workflow that can feed into some sort of regular process, whether that's analytic or operational. And some of the ways that we've done that is transforming the user interface. So we have a very familiar, intuitive visual interface that uses machine learning guidance and visual guidance to help users understand what types of transformations they should be applying to the data or how they should be cleaning up their data in a familiar spreadsheet like interface. And then we also have self-documenting lineage. So every transformation that has been applied to the data in Trifacta is automatically documented as a wrangling step in the recipe on the right-hand side of the screen here. So you can have visibility into every transformation that has been applied to the data. So you have transparency into how a data set was created, and that is easily accessible by everyone in the organization. So if you ever have an analytic output that you don't trust, with visibility, with transparency, with this lineage, you have full visibility into how different analytics were driven and what transformations were applied to data before it was delivered downstream. The other thing is around speed. So we want to make sure that the process of cleaning and preparing data is faster. And some of the ways that we do that is providing users instant previews at every transformation that they apply to their data. So if I want to convert a column, if I want to clean up a specific aspect of the data or remove it, if I want to split, do an extract, do a join, every transformation you apply to the data, you have an instant preview. So I have instant validation that that's actually the right step I want to apply to the data, instead of having to run an entire data prep job and then see the output of that job, validate if it's correct, or then rewrite your entire job. So as you're building your recipe, you're actually constantly validating that the work that you're doing against your data is actually accurate. And we also have machine learning-driven suggestions, which I talked about earlier, that as you pull up a data set, the system is automatically suggesting where to clean, where to join, where to do different types of transformations to your data to reach your intended output. And those can be driven either automatically by the product or by different interactions with the data that's in the grid. And this is all in the effort to help end users design workflows faster. So there's a part where you're actually designing the transformations you want to apply to the data, and we want to make that as fast as possible. The next step is actually implementing those workflows into production. So let's say once I've cleaned up 4 or 5 data sets, joined them together, done some aggregations, and I'm ready to push this into my downstream application or repository, I want to be able to more quickly put those into production. And so end users can either do this on their own, or in terms of and some of the organizations we work with their IT counterparts to then automate the data pipeline. So all of the work that they've done to clean, prepare data, in building their workflow, they can then set that on the schedule, set that to run on a regular basis, depending upon whatever time schedule they have or when data updates or based on some other API integration, to make sure that that process runs on a regular basis. They also have the ability to take data pipelines to share them, to test in version control. So we have a policy of SDLC where they can actually test workflows in a development environment, in a staging environment, and then push into production. So all this is intended to increase the speed of putting those workflows into production. So faster to design workflows and faster to put those workflows into production. The next thing is around efficiency. And efficiency can be done mostly thinking about cost. And I know Noel talked a lot about cost and the advantages of cloud implementations and why organizations are moving to the cloud. And a lot of the legacy solutions or software that organizations are leveraging are very costly. So licenses around SaaS or Teradata can be a tremendous cost to the organization in maintaining and renewing year over year over year. So with Trifacta, we are natively integrated into cloud platforms, as I mentioned before, so Amazon, Google, Azure. So you're only paying for the computation that you run on those platforms. And we're also natively integrating with storage, processing, and other things that are required in the implementation that make it more efficient, so you're not having to duplicate all those efforts for just our platform. We're natively integrating with the services you're already running on these platforms. And so I'll end with a shout out to some of the work that Forrester has done and some of Noel's colleagues, and then the broader analyst recognition of Trifacta. So in every independent study of the data preparation market and data preparation vendors, Trifacta has been ranked as the #1 vendor. So that's across the 2 Forrester waves that Forrester's come out with on data preparation in the past few years. We're recognized by other leading analyst firms and media members as the #1 data preparation technology. So if you're implementing a cloud data lake, if you're looking to embed data preparation within that environment, I would advise to check out some of the research by these industry analysts and see why they have ranked Trifacta the #1 vendor. So I'm going to skip through this last part really quickly. We have a number of different deployment options to get started. We have a free product that you can go sign up for a website, trifacta.com, start wrangling. Try it out. It's limited in terms of data volume and some of the functionality, but it should give you a good sense for what we do, how the product works, and to get your end users to test it out. We have a completely managed cloud option for departmental use or team use, and that starts at $5K a user. So you can simply sign up. It's a completely SaaS application. There's nothing to manage, nothing to install, and we can implement that very, very quickly. And some of the advantages of that are connectivity, scheduling, and support. And then we have an enterprise product that is all the bells and whistles, broader support and connectivity. There's integration around security, governance, API access, and that is to handle sort of the biggest data prep platforms and use cases that we have. We're also implemented on the AWS Marketplace, so if you want to give us a test out by swiping a credit card and trying Trifacta out on the AWS Marketplace, you can find us there. We recently launched a free trial for Redshift, so if you're interested in that, check our website out. We're happy to give you access to a free trial for Trifacta for Redshift. So it's another way to get started if you're on the AWS platform. And then once again, I'm going to call out the free Wrangler product to get started, which you can just go to our website right now and sign up for. So with that, I'll pass it off to questions. I know we only have a few minutes left, but Stephanie, I'll pass it back to you to go into questions.
All right, thanks, Will, and Noel, thanks for that excellent presentation. We'll get started with today's Q&A session, and thanks to the audience for their participation. We've got a great many questions that have come in, and I'll do my best to get to a couple of them in the time remaining. During this Q&A session, I'll leave up this contact screen with information for Noel and Will if you'd like to contact them for a copy of the slide deck following today's webinar. So let's get started. And the first question is, how does data preparation differ from ETL?
Thanks. I'll jump into that, Stephanie. So I think in the cloud, the easiest way to understand the differences between ETL and data preparation is ETL is mostly focused on moving data from environments. So a lot of the migration from on-prem to cloud requires an immense amount of data movement. And I think ETL products and data integration products are really well positioned to handle the data migration and the data movement. I think once data is in a platform, whether it be a cloud data lake or some other environment, the actual manipulation of the data and cleaning and preparing of data for the purposes of analytics is where data preparation shines. So data preparation platforms are not as focused on bulk data movement, but on the actual cleaning, preparing, manipulation of data for the purposes of analytics. And that's one of the biggest differences, especially in the cloud environment, of how you think about those different products.
All right, that's pretty clear. Thank you. Next question is, are any of your customers looking to use blockchain tech for implementing their cloud data solutions?
That's an interesting question. I don't believe we have had customers using blockchain as part of their Trifacta environment. I know we have a lot of customers that are building preparation workflows for the purposes of cryptocurrency mining, which is somewhat related to blockchain, but I don't think we have a use case that is purely blockchain focused.
Okay. And I think we've got time for one more question. Can you please show one use case to do wrangling using Trifacta of how DataOps can be automated?
Yeah, so the automation part is essentially when you build a workflow. So a workflow can be as simple as, hey, I'm taking a relational data set, I'm blending it with some sort of log file, and then I'll probably need to parse out the log file, apply some row and column structure to that log file, join it with my relational data set, and then produce a common output that can be published. So once all that work has been done in the design phase of Trifacta, the automation or scheduling into production, which I talked about a little bit earlier, can be done easily in the platform just by setting a certain schedule or integrating with some API to then have that workflow automated to run on a regular basis. So that's a sort of common use case we see where they're just doing some cleaning, blending data, and then setting on a schedule to feed some sort of downstream system.
All right. Well, Will and Noel as well, thank you. Some great answers to some very good questions. And for those of you that asked questions that weren't answered today, we will be sending all unanswered questions to Noel, Will, and the Trifacta team so they can follow up with you following today's webinar. I have just a few quick announcements. Please mark your calendars for May the 9th, 2019, and our next DSC webinar, Predictive Modeling's Counterpart, Data Preparation. Also, today's taping will be available for on-demand viewing later today and can be found on the homepage of Data Science Central in the Webinar tab located at the top of the page. Past webinars are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com. If you haven't had the opportunity to view them, I encourage you to take a look. They give some very useful insight into a wide variety of topics of interest to our data science community. This brings today's webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance and thoughtful questions, and a special thanks again to Trifacta and Forrester for their sponsorship, as well as to our speakers today, Noel Johanna and Will Davis, for their insight into today's topic. My name is Stephanie Glenn, and I'm pleased to have been your host for today's event. I look forward to seeing you all again on May the 9th, 2019. Have a great day.